Hi, everybody. Welcome to CryptoBeast episode 8. Today, we're going to talk about how to get started in cryptocurrency. And I'm joined by my good friend, Eric Doriean. Hi, Eric.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for having me.
So how long have we known each other?
It would be about 20 years now.
Yeah, maybe 22 years, 23
Yeah,
years.
yeah, a little over. Yeah, yes.
And so you've been involved in the internet for a very long time.
Yeah. I mean, when I met you was the first time I really got working in it, and that was back in '96. It'd been a goal of mine. I've sort of been playing around with it and wanting to get into it before then. So yeah, it's.
So, and how have you seen the internet change in the last 22 years?
Well, back when we started out, it was a big thing to, make a little animation on the on a web page, and now, having full media, having conversations like what we're able to have now, it's really becoming something that's in so many people's lives. Like back in '97, I remember going to San Francisco, and in that sort of 6 months, like my friends at home had gone from I'm never going to use this thing to using it daily. So it has become an integral part of so many people's lives now.
Yeah, and I think people today really take it for granted. The internet's always been here and it always will be there, and it's no big deal. But there was certainly a time when it wasn't like that, and in fact, a lot of people, they didn't think the internet was ever going to amount to anything. People would be like, "Why are you using that thing?"
Yeah.
And,
I've actually gone back and had a look at some articles and so forth along those lines, and having a look at some of the similarities between cryptocurrencies and internet back 20 years ago, and they do seem to be quite similar.
and so you're in Australia. Do you think cryptocurrency is taking off there, or is it still very early days?
Still very early days. I've known about Bitcoin and sort of been spruiking it, since 2010. And, in those days, it very much was the people that are talking about, all right, like this is going to be something that can, get rid of banks, get rid of central banks. And I guess what I'm seeing now is sort of getting to that next stage where people are probably more thinking about this as a way to make lots of money for themselves. And yes, that can be done, but it is a lot more than that. So we're still in its very early stages. I think the people are hearing about it probably in the mainstream, but like for the most part, they're hearing about it, how horrible it is, and this narrative is being talked about by the bankers and the people who it really does put at risk, or making them irrelevant in the future. So when they're controlling the narrative, I think a lot of the people at the moment are hearing about it at that, and not sort of seeing what it could possibly do, like the internet. Like there was a lot of people in '96 and '97 saying this thing will never take off, and here we are.
So why do you think banks would see Bitcoin and cryptocurrency as a threat to them?
Well, we don't need to have banks anymore. It's like, but why having our cryptocurrency in a wallet that we own ourselves? It takes out the need for having a middleman. We don't need to go to a bank and put our money or our gold or whatever in it, and they're going to look after it. It does. It's something that we have control of ourselves, and with that, it becomes another level of why I'm actually really quite passionate about some of the security areas in it, because there's so many horror stories of people losing their coins and being hacked for lots of reasons, and some of these things can actually be relatively easily avoided. But yeah, yeah, just by having peer-to-peer exchange instead of having a middleman, that makes banks irrelevant.
Okay, and we'll get into later on in the discussion today into some of your tips about security and looking after yourself. But if I go to a bank and I have $100 in cash and I deposit that in the bank, and then a week later I go back to the bank and I say I want my $100, are they going to give me back the same $100 that I gave them?
As far as I know, not. And at some stages and in some places, you're not guaranteed that they're actually going to give it back to you. We can see in Venezuela. I guess my knowledge on some of the monetary systems and stuff is, I guess, at a hobbyist level. But as far as I know, it's ones and zeros, and they don't they don't have too much reality in
so we've sort of gone away from the idea that the bank is a place to store your money and keep your money safe from robbers or whatever, and then when you go there they're going to hand it back to you. In fact, when you go and deposit your $100, the bank is saying, oh, I promise you I'll give you that back whenever you need it. But as we've seen all around the world, banks can fail and disappear, and there is not a lot of guarantee that you can get your money back. We've also seen in places like Cyprus where the government decided, we borrowed too much money. These guys from Goldman Sachs came and they told us we needed to do this big bond issue, and it didn't go the right way, and now we owe them all this interest and they want us to pay. So we're just going to take 30% out of everyone's bank account and give it to Goldman Sachs. And that's a little bit of a scary thing, I think. I think, it's hard to trust the centralized banking system. But how is it in the world of blockchain that, I guess, are there any banks on the blockchain where you're putting your $100, or is it just really a way of paying money to each other?
Well, there's definitely a lot of projects like, talking about banking the unbanked, and I actually don't really understand what they mean by doing that sort of thing. Like, because Bitcoin by itself, without anything else, it does allow anybody to, with a computer, to get a wallet. And be their own banks. So
So the first step is to get a wallet. So how would you recommend people go to do that to get started?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of different ways, and I the best way to go about it is to get a hardware wallet. It is the most secure. But that's a extra cost. I use, when it comes to a lot of cryptocurrencies, a wallet called Exodus. You download that. It's a program that sits on your computer, and it is a client which opens up your holdings on the blockchain. So you with your private keys, which is basically language for a really long password and many words, you are the only one that's able to connect to your account. So I use Exodus. There's other ones out there, and it's really important that in a lot of, you'll see actually a lot of exchanges go down. That's where you go and buy your Bitcoin or transfer or exchange Bitcoin or another cryptocurrency into another one. That to me is a real weak link. That's where hacks and so-called hacks, we don't even know if they are, if they're just the people who are taking it, are happening. So I'd say never leave your crypto on an exchange. And if a wallet like Exodus, which supports many cryptocurrencies, doesn't have a wallet, pretty much every single cryptocurrency, you can go to their site, download the wallet, and therefore you hold the keys, you hold your coins, and with a few extra security things, you can do that really quite safely.
What happens if somebody steals your computer that has this Exodus wallet on it?
Okay. Well, firstly, they'll never be able to open that up unless you've got your private keys either on your computer in an easy way to find them, or if you have them pinned up on your refrigerator in your room. Like those private keys become absolutely key to the whole thing. If you're not going to lose your coins by having those private keys, you can actually start your wallet up again on another computer or another device. And with Exodus, it pulls your holdings in off the blockchain. So,
right. So the money isn't on the computer. The money is recorded on the blockchain.
Absolutely.
And so if you have if you make a file on your desktop and it says private keys, and then you just like copy and paste all your private keys into that, then if anyone can get into your computer, they can take your money.
Yeah, you're gone. And there's lots and lots of stories of that. There's and I guess different wallets do work in different ways. Like I've got a bunch of cryptocurrencies where their particular wallet is the only one you can use, and they'll write a file on your computer. It's usually called wallet.dat, and you then encrypt your wallet, which actually doesn't happen by default. So always encrypt your wallet, and that wallet.dat is actually something you need to back up. That if somebody steals your computer or you lose your computer, you need that wallet.dat file. So by using Exodus, all you need is your private keys. By some of the other wallets, you'll need that wallet.dat file and your private keys.
So when you say that the private key should be like, a long series of words, can you give us an example of what you think would be a good private key for people to have?
Yeah, well, with Exodus, there's two things. There's the private key and your password or passphrase, and the private keys, which allow you to be able to open up that wallet on another machine. I think it's 12 words, and it's 12 words that they give you. In addition to that, you use your password or passphrase, and the way I do that is it's certainly not 1 or 2 words. It's probably 30 characters plus, with like extended characters, caps, numbers. Literally a password that you're not going to remember yourself. And always use a different one. So I use a password manager. Like LastPass. LastPass is one that is really good. That actually works kind of similar to Exodus, that it has a client on your computer and then accesses encrypted data it's not on the blockchain, but on their network, and it can only ever be opened up with your key. And what I do there is I use a really long passphrase that I've never written down anywhere. It's only remembered to me, but it is like a sentence. It has numbers, it has characters in it. But it is memorable, not like a 30-character long, thing that's really randomized. It is memorable, and then on top of that, always use two-factor authentication, which is something that after you enter your passphrase, you are then asked to go to your mobile and use a application like Google Authenticator. Two-factor authentication used to be always, it would send you an SMS with a code to type in. That has been shown to be very insecure. People or hackers are definitely getting SMS messages in between you and your phone. Like, these are things that are outside of the realm of a lot of people's imagination that somebody might hack their SMS. But these things are really real, and becoming more so now that the onus of security does come back onto ourselves with crypto.
Yeah, one of the things that I've noticed from some of the exchanges is that they'll send you an email every time you log on. And at first I was like, oh my God, I've already got too many emails. I don't want more emails. But now it's actually very reassuring. And I use LastPass, and my wife's laptop actually broke this week. And so we took it in to be repaired. And, she gave the person the log on to her account and didn't think much of it. And then he wanted to know my account because I was the administrator on the laptop. I gave him the password, and then I realized, oh, wait a minute, he could just load up a browser and go into LastPass or go into any of my things, and he could log straight into it. So we were able to just go to LastPass on the website from another computer and change the password there. And that stops them getting access to most of my stuff. But when you think about your Facebook log on, if you use Evernote, if you use Dropbox, a lot of these things, we just set them up on our computer to automatically log on. And that sort of does create a vulnerability around the security of the computer itself. And not even necessarily that the computer gets stolen, because people can come in and log onto your computer when you're not around, and you may not even know. So having a two-factor authentication where it just sends you that email every time you log on is interesting peace of mind. I guess the thing with the Google Authenticator is, if somebody steals your phone, then they can potentially get into your account. Yeah.
I mean, Google Authenticator goes against your Google account, and if you've got that open on your phone, and there's no, that's definitely an easier way. Like your phone does become a necessary way to access your accounts. So if someone's got your phone, and
So I guess what you would do there is you'd log on to Google and you would just change your authenticator settings.
I believe so. I haven't looked at that. I think I'm sure you'd be able to do that, log into Google Authenticator, but I actually.
All right. So the first step to getting started in crypto is to get a wallet, and you can download the wallets for free, and the wallet will ask you to set up private keys, which it may generate the first keys for you. And that's an interesting point about that, is that you can't change them once it's been set up, but you can go and create another free wallet at any time and get a new set of keys. So if you suspect that your keys may have been compromised, you just go create a new wallet, and you send your cryptocurrency to that new wallet address from your old one.
Yeah, that's right. I think it is, if you like, I actually say that setting up your password manager and getting two-factor authentication and a really long passphrase is actually the step you need to do before you set up your wallets. I think it's something, whether you're in crypto or not, I think that makes a lot of sense to do that. And I guess I've mentioned passphrase a few times. This is, a sentence. We're not talking about like, two words with a number on the end or something like that. You really want to come up with a sentence. And, people go, oh, maybe that's a little bit hard to remember. But, with a sentence, it actually can be a lot easier to remember than something that might be a little bit random or something like that.
So I could have like, my name is Steve and my hair is brown and I was born in Wellington.
Yeah, with a few numbers and characters within that somewhere that makes sense to you, by having that and two-factor authentication on your LastPass, that makes things really important. And then when it comes to private keys, I mean, I actually don't even allude to how I store my private keys for my wallets. like it's definitely not on my fridge. It's definitely not on my computer. Those are the things that, you get to rebuild the wallet. I've heard of stories of people doing interviews and they've got their private keys on the background of, behind it, like where your posters are. And then something like, it's just a bunch of words, but somebody seeing that can go, well, there's only a limited amount of wallets out there, the big ones. Let's just go get them all, type those words into them. There we go. We've just got all your crypto, and like that's just one example of how things go really, really bad. Password manager, two-factor authentication, passphrases, and those private keys really do. I mean, like a lot of these, like for example, they'll go in things like safety deposit boxes, and as you get more crypto, you really need to be thinking about a hardware wallet and using the same security methods. And to me, like a safety deposit box makes a lot of sense.
So a hardware wallet is like the Ledger Nano or the Trezor are two examples, and they're like $100 to $200. And if you're going to put a lot of money in cryptocurrency, it's definitely a worthwhile investment. I hear a lot about people, they print out a paper wallet or they print out a backup copy of their private key, and they just put that somewhere secure. But something that people should probably bear in mind is that it's not necessarily impossible for someone to get something that's been printed out and recreate it. For example, there was a lady in the US called Reality Winner who worked for the National Security Agency, and she wanted to be a whistleblower and dump a bunch of documents. But they were able to track her down because from the documents that were printed out, every printer has a unique signature and sort of a digital fingerprint in it. And they were able to work out exactly what printer it had come from just from looking at the printed document. So for me, I'm always a little bit concerned about using a printer and how safe that is. And particularly if you're using a network printer in the office or something like that, it may well be that a cache is kept of everything you print out. I think one easy way for people to encrypt their private key file is if you use a zip program. You could zip it with a password. You could also use Word. If you use Word or Excel, they let you save a file that's password protected. And this may not be impenetrable security that the most elite government units won't ever be able to break into. But I think it's probably good enough security for the average person to go into. And then in terms of protecting your physical computer, if you use something like Dropbox, it's kind of secure, but if someone gets your password to Dropbox, they can log into it. But if you've got an encrypted zip file that you then upload to Dropbox, even if somebody gets into your Dropbox and downloads that file, that doesn't mean they can get your keys because they can't get into the file. But the good thing about doing it that way is, if let's say your house got burgled and they took your computer, well, you could access that file from anywhere in the world. And if you want to print something out or even just write it down and keep it in the safe at home, well, if you get burgled, the burglars are maybe going to look for the safe as well. So, some people, they might store the piece of paper in a particular book, hidden in the middle of it, or a safe deposit box at a bank is probably a really good way to go. But I think that the main point here is that if someone gets the private key, they can get into your wallet, they can get all of your money. So you really have to protect that. And then what happens if you lose your private key? Can you just go to Exodus and tell them that you forgot your password?
I'm pretty sure you're gone. Yeah, it gets locked up. As far as I know, there's no way of getting back to that. Well, I guess with Exodus, as an example, you actually have another password which allows you to access it every time. So if you've lost your private key elsewhere, you actually have a little bit of a chance to be able to find out that private key again because you're logged in. If you lose your private key and access to the wallet, then you're in trouble. And there's a lot of different estimates of how much Bitcoin, as an example, actually has been lost like this. That hasn't just been hacked; it's just been lost, or there hasn't been procedures put in a will. And out of what will be 21 million Bitcoins, I would say there's probably going to be a couple of million that have been lost forever. So that actually does make it a more of a scarce thing than what you would than what already we're led to believe.
Yeah, I've definitely heard stories about that, particularly in the earlier days of Bitcoin, where people were just trying it out, or where they could get hundreds of Bitcoins for less than $100, and so they didn't think it was that big of a deal. But let's move on a little bit from this aspect of security. So you've got your wallet, and you've got a long passphrase, and you've kept your private keys securely. How then do you get cryptocurrency into that wallet?
Okay, yeah, there's different places, different exchanges around the world. I'm in Australia and use a couple. I have used Bitstamp in Europe because it's has been cheaper. Like, it is worth looking at the different prices. Sometimes there can be thousands of dollars of difference per Bitcoin. In different parts of the world. It doesn't always mean that you can actually buy it there, and we've sort of seen over the last month or so that some of those, it seems like all the exchanges are sort of leveling up at the moment. But do keep an eye out on for that. The only thing is, when buying in Europe, it takes an international transfer, unless you're in Europe already, and that can take 5 to 6 days, and that can the price can change a lot in that time. But
so you send your money to Europe from like a bank wire transfer?
It was a wire transfer, yeah. And I've known people who've done this quite a lot, literally just going to sending it to Europe and then selling in Australia, which was quite a lot more. So they've just spent put lots of money going around. But interestingly enough, that there's know your customer. That seems to be a thing that's coming up more and more. And the more sort of funds that go through, the more they'll look at you, and they'll ask to know every single step, every single step that money's done since last time it came through. So but Bitstamp is usually known as an exchange with lots of liquidity and really good prices. Here in Australia, I use Independent Reserve probably most of the time. CoinSpot in the US, Coinbase is the big one, which there's been a bit of in the crypto world, a bit of a blockade on them, because Coinbase is kind of like the HSBC or the Deutsche Bank. Like in the crypto world, they are often the only crypto provider that a lot of people see. Like it's like the first entrance into crypto, and they buy there, they keep it there, and that's all that they know about. So Coinbase has become very, very powerful, and by their unwillingness for quite a while to integrate change called SegWit, which would basically reduce the transaction costs and make the network faster as well. A lot of people were boycotting Coinbase, but very happy to say that in the next few weeks, Coinbase will be using SegWit addresses. So the boycott's been lifted.
So you could go to a variety of exchanges, and it's in some cases a matter of personal preference. Perhaps it's political. The exchange doesn't necessarily have to be in your country, because many of the exchanges take on international clients. Now, when you go to open a bank account, you usually have to take a few forms of ID. You've got to bring some photo ID and at least one, maybe two documents which are proof of address. And what's it like to open an exchange account?
Well, If you mean buy at an exchange, but open your account.
Yeah, if you're going to open an account for an exchange for a first time.
It can be actually relatively similar. You know, it can be kind of funny if you're doing it by yourself. Sometimes you'll need to hold up your ID, do a selfie with a piece of paper that, you know, has like today's date and the name of the exchange, or like and you're trying to hold up a license, this bit of paper, and do a selfie and make sure that everything's in focus. I've actually found that quite difficult sometimes. So it's always better if you've got somebody else to help you with that. But like there are, when you know, at these exchanges where you buy crypto from using, you know, I guess what people call fiat money, but like, you know, the money that we know up to date, there are quite a lot of ID requirements, and that is, I believe that's sort of being done with a bit of self-regulation, and to try and figure out. And I think these exchanges are probably talking to governments. Governments are telling them, we're coming after you, or we're going to be, regulations are coming. So they've started to do some of these things, which know your customer is something that it's sort of only seemed to have popped up as a term in the crypto space in the last couple of months. But that's basically as though Bitcoin isn't as private as what lots of people said. Like, that if this person at this exchange buys this crypto, then you can watch like what wallets it goes into when it gets moved around. So that the person with Bitcoin in this wallet actually was the person who bought it. There's different ways of getting around that with privacy coins and so forth. But if it's not regulated yet, it will be regulated. I'm sure this know your customer stuff, and I'm pretty sure the exchanges have just been doing this to get ahead and try and look like they're being responsible before the regulations come. It's a little bit different on exchanges where you've already got the crypto and then you're going to be trading it into other cryptos. Some of those can be a little bit less stringent, but when you're turning, the existing money into crypto, they can be quite stringent.
So the exchange is like, the point of interface between the regular financial system, where you probably have your money and your earnings today, and the new world of crypto. And then once you're in the world of crypto, it becomes a lot easier to move your funds around and to change them into different cryptocurrencies.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what would you recommend people get started with? Should they get Bitcoin? Should they get Ethereum?
I recommend Bitcoin, and then trying to study then the altcoins. Altcoin is basically anything other than Bitcoin, and then go which one makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of people have sort of been jumping into a lot of altcoins pretty crazily, and some of these things are legitimate scams, and where they don't sort of hold as much volume, so value their coin itself. So I'd say if you're etherical, which is something I really like and invested in, it makes a lot of sense, because when you own that coin or token, you'll get a percentage of the profits from the trades that are made. Actually, when it's half comes back to you and half goes back into future investments. I like things like that. I think Ethereum for the time being is a good one, because Ethereum, lots and lots of coins and projects are getting built on Ethereum, so that will drive Ethereum's price up. But there is, I think, a lot better technology coming out, and upcoming forks, like there's talk that Ethereum will go from proof of work to proof of stake, which is the way that the coins come about. That would be done in a fork, and then what basically all the tokens, well, there'll be 2 of them, not just on Ethereum, but on all the projects that use it. So there's some interesting times coming up for Ethereum, but I feel like if you're just want to stick your toe in the water and get used to it, and Bitcoin is going to be, as far as I'm concerned, and a lot of people, is going to be around for a long time. There is lots of people talking about this is going to be the new Bitcoin, but Bitcoin has what they call a network effect, and it's from crypto ATMs using it to it's just everybody knowing about it. I do recommend Bitcoin first, and then research other ones. And you're going to get lots of different opinions of what's going to be great and what's not. For now, Bitcoin to me is the safest bet, and then find projects which make a lot of sense, and try as much as possible realize that token actually holds some value. I like projects like Atlant at the moment. By buying a token, you've got a percentage of real estate, so it's actually back to some real estate. Bitcoin doesn't have that asset backing, but it has got the network effect, and it's starting to be seen as a store of value. So for the foreseeable future, I love Bitcoin, and then look at other projects that make a lot of sense. You'll get different opinions on that.
So right now, as we're recording this, a Bitcoin is $11,000 US. But what if you don't have $11,000 US to put into crypto?
Yeah, well, you can buy fractions of a Bitcoin.
So you could just buy like $50 worth of Bitcoin.
Yeah, and
would be like a good way to get started.
You could even do less. Where the thing is that can get by buying small amounts is the actual transaction fee from moving it from the exchange to the wallet. Like back in December, that was getting really, really expensive, because there's something in Bitcoin called the mempool, and it's basically when a transaction done, it gets put into the mempool, and that's where it sits before it gets written into the block and becomes true. And there was a lot of transactions, legitimate transactions being done, but there was also lots of people spamming the mempool to try and put the transaction price up. That's actually dropped down a lot. The mempools cleared out a lot of late, and this upcoming Coinbase, going to a SegWit wallet will have a really big effect on that too. So that when those transaction fees are pretty minimal, it's you've got your $50, move it in the wallet. Yeah.
So that's definitely something to think about, is the cost of each transaction, the cost of moving the money around, and that changes with different cryptocurrencies. Some of them are very, very small and very fast. Some of them they cost more and they take a bit longer to do. So you want to have an awareness of that before you just start sending things around. And then the exchange where you are converting your fiat money into cryptocurrency, that's a weak point in the sense that these exchanges are very busy, and from time to time they get overloaded and the server goes down, and so you can't log in and get your money. So it's good practice to not keep your cryptocurrency on an exchange, instead to put it in your own wallet where you know where it is and you can always access it if you have your private keys.
Yeah, that's happened time and time again, and it will again and again, that exchanges not just go down temporarily because of internet issue or a technical one, they literally go down and you never see your coins again. Like the famous one was back in 2013, Mt. Gox. But there's been more since, and there'll be more again. And it's so don't keep it in the exchange. It's kind of like keeping it in the bank, that you think that it's your money and you'll be able to get it at any time. Move it into a wallet. I think that's it's really important. Even if you do get a few transaction fees, it's worth it. You know, you want to get that back into your wallet and under your protection as quickly as possible.
Let's talk about the network effect some more. So there's a guy called Bob Metcalfe, and he's basically the inventor of networking. He came up with this thing called Metcalfe's Law, which is also known as the network effect. And the basic idea, if I could relate it to a fax machine, if there's anyone watching this who knows what a fax machine is, I think a lot of kids today would be like, what the hell is that? But they probably know all about crypto and don't need to watch this show. But, you know, when you had the first fax machine in the world, you could send a fax to anyone in the world as long as they had a fax machine. And there's no one in the world that had a fax machine. So that made it kind of useless. As soon as the second fax machine was made, you know, those two people could send faxes to each other, and it was kind of useful to them. And then, you know, the third fax machine, the fourth fax machine, it's not really growing in usefulness that much. When there was 1 million fax machines in the world, suddenly, you know, there's a good chance that somewhere you want to send a message, they would have access to a fax machine. And so people started, you know, setting them up in the local post office or a FedEx store, or you could go travel and you could get a fax sent to a hotel. And suddenly there was this means of communication. And I guess mobile phones is another example of that. The mobile phone is incredibly useful when you can just call any phone number in the world with it. And so this is being applied to cryptocurrency.
Yep. And most in particular with Bitcoin, but you know, it is the one that you know, as I said, like before, like the ATMs that are going to be popping up. You know, it's always going to be Bitcoin, and maybe there'll be Ethereum, maybe there'll be Litecoin or something like that, but it was always going to have Bitcoin. You know, although you know, maybe to counter that a little bit, like because of some of the fees that I was talking about before, like you know, there's not a lot of like even some e-commerce providers who have provided Bitcoin payment services, they're actually suspending or stopping them for the moment. So, you know, that does give the opportunity for things like Litecoin to pop up, you know, because of the, you know, the speed of the transaction. I mean, the speed is a big issue because, you know, basically Bitcoin can do something like about 4 transactions a second or thereabouts, whereas like, you know, on the other side, you've got the Visa network that can do 50,000. So a lot of these up and coming coins go, yeah, we're really quick, but you know, they're actually, of course, they're quick because nobody else is using them. So you know, so some of these speed things are you know, a concern or something to be looking at, and you know, that's why, you know, like the Bitcoin community have come up with solutions like the Lightning Network, which I don't know if it's getting off topic a little bit, but there are things coming on. It's just easy to remember that, or we should realise that we are in the early stages, and like the internet, you know, we couldn't do a lot of things that we can do today with the early internet, and you know, there's some really smart people working on some of these projects, but you know, there's also some.
So for someone like you who's worked in the tech industry for pretty much your whole career and has been at Bitcoin for 8 years, and you know, is talking to people all the time about cryptocurrency, what % of people in your life do you estimate actually have a wallet that have cryptocurrency in it?
It's still, I would say it's probably bigger in my circle of influence or friends, but it's still, you know, a few %, you know, maybe maximum 5%. Yeah, although, you know.
Yeah, so it's a small percentage, so it's still early days. But with this network effect, the more people use it, the more valuable it becomes.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's what a lot of people are seeing in cryptocurrency, and why they want to get involved in it, and why they want to move quickly to get involved in it, because you could get in at a low price. Like Etherical says, buy low and sell high. you can get in now when a lot of the world is still not using it, because you know with this network effect that in the future it will become more valuable.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
in that way, I think it's probably superior to regular money where, you know, when we were kids, you could go down to the corner store with $1 and you could buy multiple items in the store for $1. Like $1 was a huge amount of money for a kid down at that store. And today you'd be lucky to buy a can of Coke just about anywhere in the world for $1. So the value of that dollar, it goes down over time. And, you know, the network effect isn't coming into it because everyone's using it. Instead, you get the opposite side of economics, which is supply and demand. And so if the government needs more money, like we've just seen that in the United States every year or so, they talk about, oh, we're going to have a government shutdown and we're going to have to stop all these essential services for the people. And then at the last minute, they're like, oh, it's okay. We didn't have a government shutdown after all. And the reason why they don't have it is that they basically decide they have the power to print money out of thin air. And so they decide to just create some new money and then to lend it to themselves. And so more and more dollars keep getting created all of the time. And using the laws of supply and demand, if the supply goes up, the price goes down. But it's the opposite of that with Bitcoin, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, you know, scarcity is the thing which, you know, has been a big part of why the price of Bitcoin will come out. If there was an unlimited amount of Bitcoin, then there, you know, anyone could get it. You know, that's the reason why, you know, the price wouldn't go up, because there isn't that, you know, supply and demand, because there is a limited supply. We can't just print unlimited when it comes to Bitcoin. Some of the other tokens isn't actually exactly the same. They can be, there are some where it's literally unknown how many are available and ever will be available. So, you know, transparency within a community and the code base is also really important when evaluating some of the currencies coming up. But the fact that there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. We've already talked about, you know, some being lost. 1 million of those are the supposed inventor of Bitcoin, Satoshi, which was, you know, either a person or a group of people. You know, in reality, we probably will never know, but like there's 1 million of them. So, you know, they're actually a little bit, you know, it is even scarcer than what we think.
So we have the network effect where as more people start using it, it becomes more valuable. And so the demand will just increase and increase and increase. And then we have the supply being fixed. So if supply is fixed and demand increases, the price goes up. And so one thing you want to look for in cryptocurrencies is you want to look for ones where you know how many are in supply, in circulation, and that's fixed. It can't just be increased in the future.
There's some. Just to sort of go on that point, like there are some, you know, a lot of people aren't sort of realizing this as they come in. You really do need to look at the total supply. Have a look at the supply now, and then, you know, there's, you know, people, you know, who create these projects usually have a whole lot of these things, and they can dump them on the market at any time. And so really do have a look at both total supply and supply now. When factoring in, you know, the market capitalization, and then, you know, some people go, oh, this thing's at a couple of cents, you know, of course they'll go up to 20 cents, but then they sort of don't, you know, do the multiplication of the total supply and go, oh, actually, like, you know, 10 cents, that would actually be, you know, $10 billion. Do you actually really see this currency going to $10 billion? So I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize when they're getting in, is to just, you know, just think about, you know, how many coins are available and will be.
So the number of coins in circulation times the price of each coin, that's the market cap. And Bitcoin itself has a market cap of about $200 billion. Ethereum's coming up on $100 billion. So, you know, for Bitcoin, if it's $11,000 for one Bitcoin and all the Bitcoins are worth $200 billion, that means if Bitcoin becomes $1 trillion market cap, the coins will go up in price 5 times from what they are today. And, you know, I think that's definitely conceivable. And if it becomes a $10 trillion market cap, they'll go up 50 times from where they are today. So each Bitcoin is worth $500,000. So if each Bitcoin is worth $1 million, each Bitcoin, it's going to go up 100 times from where it is today. And you're starting now to get into the realms of, well, is that really going to happen mathematically? And, you know, could Bitcoin go up 10,000 times from where it is today? You start to get to a point where it's actually worth more than all of the money in the world. And that's probably not going to happen. But when you look at some of the newer coins coming out, like when Bitcoin was first released, and, you know, the first exchange was, I think, 2 pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoins. So it has gone up in value more than 10,000 times since it was released. Ethereum, you know, when it was first released, I think was less than a dollar, and now it's close to $1,000. So looking at some of these new coins, they definitely have the potential to go up multiple times. And one way to assess how much growth potential there is in the coin is to just look at this market capitalization, or market cap, which is the number of coins in circulation times the price of the coin. And so if you want to wonder, you know, how much could it go up, you work out, well, what market cap that would be. And, you know, you might like a particular coin. Like there's one that I like at the moment. It's called Aron, A-R-N. And they're trying to do aviation safety and maintenance logs on the blockchain, which is quite a reasonable use case. And it's sort of an enthusiast coin for the aviation business. But could this one coin, you know, with a slight use, could that be worth more than, you know, every airline in the world combined? Probably not. Probably not going to grow to be that big. So I think you can kind of compare these things to businesses and say, well, you know, there's a bit of a limit to how big they can get.
That's right. Although, you know, this is interesting how I look at like you know, valuations of businesses like Uber. They are, you know, massive, and they don't own any vehicles or do anything like that. So, you know, crazy things can happen.
Yeah. So if you're looking to invest and you want to make a lot of money, you maybe look for coins with a lower market cap because there's more upside potential.
Yeah, but I guess, and this is where it becomes a little bit easier for yourself, myself, who know a lot about the space. We can actually go and evaluate product on a lot of knowledge we have, whereas a lot of people go, oh wow, it's, you know, this thing's in IoT is going to be big, and that's sort of all the knowledge they put together, and then they'll put a, you know, double down and jump into it, whereas we can actually go and look at, oh, what does this do with IoT, you know, or whatever it is. Like that is something that does make it you know, a lot easier for people like yourself and myself to be able to evaluate whether this thing's an absolute scam, because there are a lot of them out there.
Yeah, so part of it is understanding the technology, if it is a software project related to the coin, and how viable is that software project, you know, to actually take off and get this network effect kind of benefit where everybody in the world wants to use this thing.
Absolutely. It is really important. And then, you know, there are, you know, like ventures like Verical, and, you know, where yourself, you go and do this analysis on behalf of others. And because you are adding larger amounts of money, you can go and then get discounts, which mums and pops can't themselves. So, you know, that they are, you know, there are potential ways to get into these, sort of things which can have these massive returns. Although, they're just make sure that it's not a pyramid scheme or something like that. There's been a bunch of projects out there that have gone bad, like BitConnect being the most famous one. Did you see anything like BitConnect?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, well, they came out and they said, look, put one Bitcoin in now and you'll make 3 times your money in 3 months. It's guaranteed. And I think anytime anybody says something's guaranteed, you want to be a little bit wary. I mean, this is very risky, this stuff. A lot of things can go wrong. You might not protect your passphrase, your private key. You might lose them or forget them. They could be stolen. That's one risk. You might have your money in an exchange. The exchange might go down. That's another risk. Or you might pick a coin that, it turns out to not be as popular in 10 years as it was today. And so the value of it goes down. So I think in anything in life where there is high rewards and high returns, there's high risk as well. But looking at last year, I did an analysis of the top performing cryptocurrencies in 2017. And I looked at the 30 most valuable coins by market cap. And there was one of them called Bitcoin Gold. And that actually lost money over the course of the year. But every other one went up. And the worst performing one, it went up 270 odd %. And in fact, Bitcoin was only number 24. So although it went up 1,000%, so you'd make 10 times your money in a year putting it in Bitcoin, that was only 24. It was really not one of the highest performing ones. So people are there and they're looking at, where do I think demand is going to grow? Where do I think there's a good use case for this coin, but not everyone's found out about it yet? And as they find out about it, they're going to want to get some too. And they're making 10, 20, 30, 100 times their money. So this is, in a way, it's a new form of savings. And you're not guaranteed that you're going to get it, but it's different from, say, a horse race where there's 16 horses and only one's going to win. If you take your money in cryptocurrency and you pick the top 16, probably all of them are going to make money.
Yeah, I mean, I think that diversification of your portfolio, like I am recommending, if you get started with Bitcoin and that's your thing, but as you get to learn a bit more, there are these types of opportunities out here that do have, some absolutely stunning returns. And I have a percentage of my portfolio where I pick one that's and they are high risk, high reward that will have really big returns. And you've got to have a look. Do they, like with some of these things, you don't know if the team will be around. So if you have a look at fundamentals like the team and the technology, and even like things like, this is a nice website that actually does count for something. You have a look at these and put a percentage of your portfolio in that if that feels right to you. And it's been good to me. But it definitely in those ones they are high risk and they could go to zero. But we're in a time where I don't know, if you sort of tick off a few boxes, there is a decent team that are around, try and figure out that they're not scammers. They're not just here to push it, and there's some pretty elaborate scams. But chances are you will, be able to go from, 1 cent to 10 cents or whatever it is, these are massive returns that you're not going to get in most of the investment opportunities out there.
Now, in these riskier coins that you take perhaps some more bets in, what sort of time frame are you looking to get a return in? Is it going to be hours or days or weeks or months or years, or what should people expect?
Not hours or days, although one I'm in at the moment, it's called Buzzcoin. It was an old coin which they rebranded, and they got a new development team on, and I'm thinking this year would be that one for Buzz. So it's you never really know, like, you know, and I think, like, you know, the cheaper they are, the less, you know, the more risky they are. But, you know, I was able to go through and, you know, jump on the community groups and chat to people, make sure that there's real developers there, like things like that. Like, you know, if there's real developers, chances are, you know, they will be around for a while.
So you've brought up a good point there, that's something else to look for is the community groups. And I've noticed that almost every cryptocurrency has a group on Telegram, chat application. So it's a good idea to download Telegram and go see the chat, and you can see what sort of things do people talk about. You know, do people love the coin? Are people really enthusiastic? Or, you know, if you go there and everybody's just hating on the company and criticizing them, that coin maybe doesn't have such a great future. If you go to a Telegram group and there aren't too many people there, you can say, well, is this something new that's just come out? Or if this has been out a few years, but there's only a couple of hundred people talking about it, you know, are they doing something wrong? So you've got your wallet and you've got some cryptocurrency, you've got some Bitcoin to get started. Maybe you've dipped your toe into the water with some altcoins and you know, some sort of longer shot speculation. Is there any other software or apps that you recommend people should get if they want to get in the world of crypto?
Yeah. When alt trading, I try and pair together both fundamentals, like some of the things we've talked about, like, you know, is the team going to be around for a long time? Is the product right? You know, just trying to get, you know, think about some fundamentals. And also, when I decide to purchase, like I use and more some technical analysis on and charting software. So I use like tradingview.com for technical analysis. And, you know, the more I learn about this, it's sort of something I hadn't really learned until the last couple of months. You do start to see patterns, and they don't always go exactly how you think they're going to go. They're not, you know, by themselves the be all and end all, but they certainly do give you an extra level of understanding of what the market's doing, and, you know, see trends, but also beyond that, also really look at the order books. If you have, you know, a big wall, there's a lot more people wanting to buy than sell. The chances are it'll go up. You know, these are things that take time, and they're not exact science by any means. But I definitely think it's you know, just sort of randomly, you know, throwing darts at a board and going, oh yeah, I'm going to get this thing or that thing, and at this time or that. You know, the people who are doing it a lot better in this world, having a look at some, you know, more, you know, fundamentals and technical analysis of the price.
So tradingview.com.
Yeah, there's a bunch out there, but you know, most of the coins are out there. It's only sort of once they're, you know, like some of the, you know, when they're really just getting started out, they're not on there, and I feel like I'm going blind when they're not on. But yeah, I really like tradingview.com.
One app that I have in my phone that I quite like is CoinCap. You can go to their website as well, coincap.io, and they let you track an alt folio. So you can put in there all of the different cryptocurrency that you purchased, and then you can look in and you can see what it's worth at that particular point in time. And it changes a lot over the course of a day or a week. Sometimes it's better not to look at it.
Absolutely. What do I use? BitUniverse, which sounds like it's a very similar thing. And you can even, you know, using an API key, you can use, you can give like an exchange read-only access. So that means that they can't, you know, do any trades, but you can start to bring in, you know, different portfolios, which at the moment, like, you know, during the correction, I've just put everything back into wallets. So it doesn't really matter. But like when I'm trading lots, you know, that can be quite useful. But you know, I do I think you're right. Like it can be a little bit of a curse. Like you know, if that's the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning, which often is for me. You know, maybe there's better ways to use your time.
You know, a strategy that I really like is one of accumulation. And I actually heard about this from my sister initially, that she's got a group of friends that she gets together with once a month, and they have a bit of an investment club. And they would sit around and they would talk about what stocks they wanted to buy. And they decided to change it to cryptocurrency. So they each set aside a couple of $100 a month, and they get together to talk about it. Everyone says what particular one they like, what the reasons are, what looks like a good price. And then every month they just buy some more. And so if you follow that strategy, what it means is that the times of correction when the market dips down, you're actually really happy because, you know, you've got the same amount to spend every month, but you can buy more of those coins. And if you follow that over the course of 3 to 5 years, I think you're going to end up with, you know, a much better savings account than if you just took $200 every month and put it in your savings account in the bank, where you might get 3 or 4% annual interest, which is then subject to tax. So I really like the strategy of accumulating. Just take some of your income, some of your assets, a small percentage maybe, and just, you know, put it, just keep putting it aside, keep purchasing, and try not to sell. The other strategy I like is to generate crypto, and there's more and more things you can do nowadays to generate crypto. Like, you can find new forms of work on the internet where people will actually pay you in cryptocurrency to, you know, write a blog post or do a task for them or give them some advice. We're seeing that more and more, and I know you've recently got on Steemit. What's your impression been of that?
Yeah, I basically got on Steemit because, you know, because I've been around this for a while. I've got lots of people asking me, you know, what do I do? What do I not do? Like some of the, you know, the things that we've talked about in this discussion. And I wrote out this email, and I was like, hang on, I should really just put this out there for everyone. So now I just put this link on. But I really like Steemit. I think, you know, like I watch a lot of non-mainstream news, and I'm seeing a lot of people who are being either maybe not quite pushed off YouTube, but or, you know, being penalised on YouTube, being penalised on social media sites, that they're starting to get onto things like Steemit and DTube, and you know, I think it kind of feels like, you know, it's a pretty exciting time for that, because, you know, like almost every week, like there's someone I'm really interested is jumping on it. So it's becoming more and more useful. And what I do like about the fact that, you know, if you upvote someone, upvote a comment or upvote their content, you know, it is, you know, a small financial amount, but it is also really useful for the people who are creating content that are, you know, it's more than like likes on a Facebook. It's actually like, you know, some sort of investment. So people can actually go, oh, okay, this is actually really useful content that other people like. So it's almost like the MVP model in writing software. You know, you can put stuff out and you get feedback, and I give more credence to the feedback and the upvotes on something like Steemit than I do on some of the other social media platforms, because, you know, it does cost that you know, very, very small amount of crypto to be able to upvote something.
Yeah, and you know, if you use Steemit a little bit, like I've got more than 100 posts there now, and I've got some posts that probably made 4 cents, but I've got some posts that made $20. And, you know, I'm not a heavy Steemit user. I'm not on it every day, for example, and I'm not posting every day. But what I was just talking about before, the idea of, you know, setting aside a couple of $100 every month, if you don't have that in your income stream, if you're like, well, I couldn't save $200 a month. Well, you get on Steemit and you just write some posts, and you have a goal that I'm going to try to generate $100 a month on Steemit, and then I'm going to take that cryptocurrency that I get paid, the Steem dollars, and then you can convert that into other cryptocurrencies. And so every month, place some bets on new up and coming ones, because you know that from Steam It, you could go and get another $100. You just keep doing the posts. And then, like you say, from the feedback you get from the audience, you'll learn to tailor your message to the people that are reading it. So you'll get more likes and more money. And once in a while, you might get a post that breaks through or goes viral and performs much better than you expected, and you get a windfall. So I think it's a good skill to have, as well as, instead of having to not spend and not have money and put stuff aside to save, you look at accumulating and how do I add more of this in my life? And I can go out and do a few little things here and there that bring cryptocurrency into me.
Absolutely, and even just and the value of Steam, like we've seen over the last couple of months, sort of gone from $1 to $4 US or thereabouts, and so your $20 that you earned a few months ago, that's now more like $80. So they're and I guess
right, and so you get the opportunity, not just that you write a post or you like something or you make a comment and you get paid for that. You also get the cryptocurrency opportunity that the Steam dollars themselves may just go up in value whether you do anything or not. So you just accumulate more of these Steam dollars and they go up in value, because what we're seeing right now is very much, I believe, that Steam is benefiting from the network effect, that enough people are using it and aware of it that's driving them to get on. And as more people use the platform, that means there's more money on it to go around, and it's driving the currency to become more and more valuable.
Yeah, no, I'm seeing, like, over the last couple of weeks in particular, hardly a week will go by where someone I haven't followed on Twitter or YouTube or Medium or whatever it is, like, they're coming over to Steam It. So it's really in the early days there too. And, I see that coming along. I guess as far as accumulation goes, it's probably worth talking about proof of stake as well. We talked about before is like, getting your coins off the exchange and putting them into your wallets. Most of the wallets, just by leaving them open and running, you'll actually earn coins from as well, like the proof of stake ones. And like the more coins you get, the more coins you get back. Like I mentioned Buzz before, like I'm, getting around about 50,000 Buzz coins a week just by running it in my browser at the moment. They're not worth much now, but I'm pretty sure that, they will be. So there are lots of different ways to accumulate.
And what's this thing that people keep talking about, mining? How would you explain mining cryptocurrency to people?
So mining is, I guess, the proof of work side of things, and that's what that does is it use it gets a harder and harder problem to solve. So you need to put more and more computing resources on it, and and when you solve that problem by you get the crypto, like Bitcoin or other ones. That has, I mean, it's so that's the way that the proof of work coins come into existence. That's how transactions are written into the block. So it basically runs the network, and so now with Bitcoin, like there was a time where you could mine Bitcoins on your computer, and you would be able to get Bitcoin. Now it's getting harder and harder, because there's the problem gets harder and harder to solve, and the people you're competing with have more and more computing resources that are going for that to solve the problem. So basically you need a lot of equipment and probably get into a pool to be able to mine Bitcoin. But ones like Monero, and there's a bunch of different ones which are at the right sort of time, where by putting your GPU with your graphics processing, you can get a return. It might be like a couple of dollars a day, but again, like Steam It, and then you know, that can go up in value. And if you just keep doing it, just running on, you know, using some of your CPU to do that, yeah, you'll keep on accumulating coins. Bit hard in the Bitcoin space at the moment. Yeah, but you know, Samsung is coming out with mining equipment to give some competition to Bitmain, and you know, basically to buy mining equipment, you know, you have to buy from these Bitmain guys, and they also do the mining as well. And you know, the equipment that you're buying was always, you know, a bit older than the stuff that they're using themselves. So there's a lot of pitfalls that stop the everyday person mining in Bitcoin. But
so for people just starting out with crypto, they probably don't need to think about mining it so much. They're probably better to either think about, you know, investing in coins that are going to go up in value, or generating it, you know, with Steemit, with DJ, Shoot, some of those ones.
Yeah, mostly, but like I do have friends who have, you know, who've got a bunch of computers that have got graphics cards in them, and they run around and they just run them, run all the time, and you know, in the last couple of months, you know, pulled in hundreds of dollars. So it is there to be had, but probably not in the Bitcoin space at the moment. Like, you know, as I said, Monero is one, and I haven't really followed it too closely to know which ones are the ones that you know, are worth it at the moment. But yeah, it is out there to be had.
And just to wrap it up, you've been involved for a few years now in quite an interesting venture, looking at basically new ways for people to interact with each other without money. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so I guess you know, quite a while I came to a fork in the road, and it was like, and there's so many things you can do in this life. Where do I see the you know, the biggest benefit coming from? When I looked around and looked with you know, my co-founders in Anyshare, we saw you know, a lot of us you know, live in scarcity, but like the natural state in nature is actually abundance. So we started off on a bit of a research project to try and figure out what that is, why that's happening, and you know, part of the solution we see to that is sort of unlocking unused value, and that value could be skills that you have, or it could be assets that are lying dormant. So with Anyshare, at the moment, it's you know, you create a sharing network for your group or community, and you'll you know, people within that group or community add, you know, things that they want or have, and how they're willing to exchange that. And that could actually be money or crypto, but it, you know, it could also be trading, you know, your skills for something, for an asset. But the whole idea is to, you know, reuse a lot, and unlock the value that's you know, within our communities, and you know, that sometimes isn't being realised. So, you know, it's been a project which we've learned a lot in. You know, we've got stuff going now. We're working on more stuff. You know, if we do. It has been a bit of a holy grail for a lot of people to unlock this value, and it's sort of been the you know, the promise of the sharing economy, and you know, beyond you know, some of these platforms like Uber or Airbnb, which aren't really about sharing. Like it's renting, and then you know, that value is you know, sort of extracted, like many of our other models, to the organisation of Uber and Airbnb. Like this holy grail hasn't really been cracked yet. We've done it a little bit, but you know, pretty excited about some of the things that we're working on now that, you know, that we wouldn't have been able to work on if we hadn't been learning this for a very long time. So it's definite passion, and something I get up and really enjoy, and I feel like you know, it's something we can crack, and we'll crack someday soon.
So who should use Anyshare?
Right now, it's really tailored for groups and communities, and that could be like a local group, or you know, a geographic-based group, or it could be a group based on interests, or it could be a sports group. We are looking, you know, sort of working towards some things that are a little bit more tailored around the individual. But yeah, groups and communities right now is what it's all about. Like, for an example, intentional community, where one of our co-founders, Rob, lives at. It's being used quite more and more there, because we've literally just brought in a ability that you're able to have a look at a 3D map of the building and actually go in floor by floor and you know, put your needs and resources within a building, which is, you know, really, really useful for communities, and also, you know, maybe conferences and so forth. So yeah, we literally haven't even put anything on our website about that, but we're about to. Got the first version and it's in the product now, just getting rid of a few last little bugs, and then we'll be promoting it like crazy.
And where can people go on the internet to find out more about that?
Yeah, Anyshare.coop, so ANYSHARE.coop, because we're a cooperative, so .coop, so Anyshare.coop.
Great. Well, Eric, thanks very much. It's been a good discussion of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and I hope you've explained some things to the people out there.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. See you later.
Get a lot of value out of it.